Kia, and I'm your host.
And this is your girl, Candy K. Lynn.
Every Saturday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, you guys, this is the place to be. Grab a bottle of water, grab a coat, grab your favorite drink, call your friends, and take note. To engage in meaningful conversations, this is the place to be. We will address internal and external challenges that Black men and women face here in Black America. Tonight's is our first episode, you guys, and our episode tonight will focus on Black America and how we thrive.
Kia, let's get to sipping. In today's show, guys, we're going to focus on Black voices, and they're louder than ever since COVID-19. No matter what has happened, we're still here. We're going to focus on how business owners and leaders in our community have continued to thrive during this pandemic.
And you guys, just as Candy said, we're going to talk about things such as Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, who have all lost their lives this year in America, and it took the streets. The NBA, the WNBA, all stood in unity as the injustices that occurred in Black lives were televised. In the 1960s, during the Civil Rights Movement, the tapes were, I'm sorry, you guys, were delayed and replayed. This revolution is being televised live. We're going to allow others and yourself to share your emotions from that time, what your kids were told, why all this matters, and how to handle this emotionally.
Okay? So, guys, we are going to go ahead and get started. And in that, we do have guests with us joining us tonight that you see. You see Philip Hobbs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having
And
me.
you're welcome. And Jonathan Harris. Thank you.
Hello, hello. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming on and joining us. So you guys, to kind of just go ahead and jump right in, the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which bans chokeholds and federal no-knock warrants, among other reform measures. That is something that was kind of discussed and talked about a lot within the news, within just social media in general. So we kind of also want to talk about things like that as well once we kind of jump right in. Um, as well as COVID and how COVID has affected us within the Black America, us business as entrepreneurs and things of that nature. Um, Kennedy, you want to go ahead and jump in with the first set of questions in reference to COVID?
I can. So, well, you want to talk COVID before we talk social injustice?
Let's go ahead and do. Okay, that's fine. We can do social.
Yeah, let's do social injustice. Okay, guys. And the reason why is because we do have Black male leadership on, which is a amazing thing. And just with everything that has gone on, Philip, what did it make you feel like this summer when we watched all of these things transpire as a Black man? How did you feel?
As a black man, the hardest thing for me is sitting down and having to explain this to my black son and being able to talk to him in regards to how he should respond and how he should be. I will never forget at one moment I told my son, I said, "Hey, one, daddy loves you, and two, what I'm saying, be careful coming back home because they're killing young men, killing young black boys." And I will never forget the moment or the feeling when my son turned right back around and said, "Daddy, I love you too. But you be careful as well because they're killing black men also." So for my son to be at that age and for him to recognize what's going on or the injustices that were going on, that within itself, as a father, put me in a position of like, you would never want your kids to experience that, or you would never want your kids to feel that way. And that's the reality in the world that we actually live in now, especially with us being black and us being blind. And with me being connected to so many young men, it wasn't just my son that I'm thinking about now. I'm thinking about everybody else's son that I've had opportunity to be around because I think all these kids are mine. And thinking about all it takes is one bad incident or one bad situation for them not to being able to return home. So it brought the question to is how do we change that? And the reality of it is, living in America that we live in, there is no change the way that the system is set up now, and that's the unfortunate, realistic situation that we live in. So again, it's monitoring that and being able to get them or the kids that I'm around, as well as the older adults that I talk to, also of understanding the circumstance and the situation, and doing whatever it takes to be able to make it back home to their families. So I mean, just like every other man, I was very distraught. I was very disturbed. I was very confused. I think there were a lot of emotions that we had during that time period in what was right and what was wrong, and what's the most best way to create change. Because of course we saw that our founding fathers, they marched, they did all these things that which they had to in order to lead the change. I just believe that we're in a new generation now, to where I don't think that's always the proper way to go about getting change nowadays, is being able to find the right solution. And I still think that we're still trying to figure that out right now.
Yeah.
Jonathan, what were your thoughts?
It was extremely tough to watch, hear, and just see different things. So I live in a rural part of Pennsylvania, and even today, as I'm driving, there was a police truck behind me. I wasn't doing anything, wasn't speeding, wasn't, anything that would draw attention to me. But in the back of my mind, the entire time, I'm just like, Lord, please don't, you know, have me get pulled over. Just because of all of the stories that we've seen time and time again. And in many of those cases, the driver wasn't resisting, wasn't doing anything that would pose a threat, and the situation still turned fatal. So, I think that we all kind of left it with some form of PTSD because of just the anxiety of, seeing those situations and thinking it could be me. And, working at a college, similar to what Philip said, all of my students are like my little brothers. So beyond just, worrying for my own safety and well-being, I think about my students when they're out and about in their respective home states and just different things like that. Sometimes it's easy to be solution oriented, but then sometimes you also have to realize that we can present solutions, but if we're not the ones causing these things to happen, does the other side even care to fix this? And sometimes that's a harsh reality that I think about.
You guys, Philip and Jonathan, um, let's kind of go back, because for the listeners in the audience that don't have an understanding of what social injustice is, can you guys both give your own individual definitions of what exactly social injustice is to you, in reference to like the George Floyd, using that as an example as social injustice? But what is the definition for you, and what got you involved in reference to, you know, promoting the lack thereof social injustice within the Black community?
Well,
Sure.
for me,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead, Jonathan, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say for me, I define social justice as just any type of situation that takes place, or social injustice as a situation that takes place where someone is harmed or something negative happens based on factors that they cannot control. So we cannot control our race, our ethnicity, our sexuality, our gender, things of that nature. But when things are put into place that take away from our quality of life, I would consider that to be a social injustice.
I agree 100% with what Jonathan said. Any type of discrimination, I think that social injustice has so many different forms and so many different ways that we actually see that now. But like you said, anything that takes away from the quality of life or to discriminate from us being able to have the freedom or the liberties that others have, I think that that's a form of social injustice as well.
You guys, so in the beginning, I kind of talked about briefly the George Floyd Policing Act. What are your thoughts on that? Being that it was supposed to ban, well, it's supposed to ban chokeholds and federal no-knock warrants, among other reform measures. What are your thoughts and feedback on that?
Personally, I feel like that's not enough. You can ban a whole bunch of things, you know what I mean? But in reality, I mean, my personal beliefs is, I know we hear a lot about it, but I honestly feel like until you start hitting somebody in their pocket, that's when they'll start understanding. It's cool, you know what I'm saying, that they have a fund that's already set up for those type of incidents of being able to pay the families and stuff like that. But when you start affecting their 401ks and it start affecting their financial contributions to their families, that's when the real change, because not only is it affecting them, but it's affecting their brothers that are all that are within that community, as far as being officers. It is not just the officers, but we're talking about the politicians, the people who actually make the laws, the judges. All these things and all these people are the ones I believe that overall is how we actually make the change. So when we start affecting their bottom line, that's when the change, I believe, would actually start taking place.
Jonathan, what's your feedback?
And I echo the same sentiments. I think it's a great start, but I only say it's a great start because there's so many other parts of the situation we need to look at. For me personally, I have always been an advocate of changing the hiring and selection process as well as training of police officers. And I say all that to say, imagine, let's take policing off the table. If I wanted to become a social worker, right? I couldn't become a social worker in 9 months. If I wanted
Right.
to become a medical doctor, if I wanted to become, goodness, a couple of professions, it would take me at least a couple of years where I'd have to do some type of formal schooling, maybe. Then I'd have to do some type of clinical hours. Even if I wanted to become a barber,
Right.
I think that the responsibility of a police officer is so heavy, and I'm just not sure if a 6 to 9 month academy really encompasses all they need to know to really be out there doing it to the best of their ability. There are some other parts that maybe need more emphasis. I know that a lot of the police academy focuses on, the laws and, how to defend yourself and things like that. But maybe more of the academy needs to be focused towards sensitivity training and how to understand people who come from different backgrounds. Because even when you think about cultural context, right? Even before we started this show, we were talking about where we were from and different accents and stuff. But even within different cities and states, people have different body languages and gestures that
Right.
maybe where I'm from, staring too intensely might be a sign of me paying attention. But maybe where you're from, staring too intensely is a sign of disrespect. And now we have a standoff. So I think I'm saying all that to say, like with our officers, I think they need more training in all aspects of how to work with people. And
Right.
even with the selection and hiring process, I work on a college campus. And a while back, a couple of years ago, I went to the chief of police and I said, this is a university, but no students or employees that are non police officers are a part of the interview process. And I
Mm.
advocated for other people. So I got to sit in on the hiring of police officers. And I had an RA who's a student worker who is a criminal justice major. He got to sit in as well. So even though that was great experience for his major, him also being a Lincoln student, he got to advocate on behalf of his peers to make sure that the police officers that we're bringing onto this campus are a representation of our student body's wants and needs. And you don't really see that. So you don't see neighborhood presidents being asked to sit on those search committees. You don't see politicians or anyone from the church or just anyone in the community that maybe has some type of influence that is a part of this election process. So I think that we need to, like I said, restructure a lot of things that go into our present day system.
Wow.
Jonathan, I have a question for you. So,
Sure.
more so, an action based question, because I think what you said was very, very important. Can you tell people what steps you took to be able to implement that step of getting additional people to sit in on the hiring process? Because in a city, the city council and the city managers hire the
Mhm.
police. People don't understand that.
Right.
So on a college campus, can you give us just like a quick 1, 2, 3 step process of what that looks like so that people looking in can implement those in their communities?
Sure. So on a college campus, we usually have a chief of police. It's kind of like their own municipality. I met with the chief of police and made the recommendation and gave my examples as to why I felt like, there should be some general body representation. And then from there, they went back and I guess thought about it, and it was approved shortly after the meeting. So those would be kind of my basic 1, 2, 3 steps. But for anyone who's within an arm's reach of a police department and you think that it would be good to have that representation, reach out to your local council representative or whomever that person would be to see if you can get some more representation from just the general community.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. Jonathan and Philip, Candy and I, we have one last question in reference to the George Floyd Policing Act, and then we're going to jump right into talking about COVID-19 and how it's in fact impacted you guys in reference to your business as a entrepreneur, a Black entrepreneur. For the listeners and the people who are watching right now, what is one piece of advice that you would leave them with in reference to making a difference within the community? Philip, Jonathan, whoever wants to go first.
Well, personally, I think getting more actively involved. How do you do that? I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean some people are not great with kids, but trying to find a way where you can actually get involved with your community, I think is the first step. And I'm going to take it a step further. I think that if we actively start raising our households, men step up and raise our households first, then we can affect the neighborhood, which the neighborhood can affect the community, which the community affects the state, and it grows vice versa. So the first thing we need to do is get involved in our own household with teaching our kids the respect. I've dealt with so many kids now, and they don't understand what it's like dealing with one with authority. And it's a double-edged sword because you, on one hand, we're saying that, hey, you know what, the police need to do better, but we're not screaming the same thing from our kids, demanding that they respect our elders as well. So it goes hand in hand in regards as far as getting started. If we start at the house, then I
Yeah.
believe that actually can affect the community.
Jonathan, what's your advice you would leave reference to this topic?
My advice is that we have to be consistently visible. And by consistently visible, I mean that a lot of times you notice that the biggest uproar is right after something happens. And then it's kind of like when the news and social media stop talking about it, you just don't hear it anymore. I remember being on Instagram and almost every day for maybe 5 weeks. You know, there were a lot of Breonna Taylor posts, George Floyd posts, Ahmaud Arbery posts. And then at some point, it just kind of stopped when the next social trend came up. But these aren't social trends. These are real people who were killed. And they can't be relegated to just a hashtag to, fit a trendy thing. I think that we have to be consistently attending PTA meetings to make sure that we are working with the school systems. We have to consistently attend town hall meetings so that we can stay on our politicians. We have to regularly protest and write letters and do these different things to let them know, like, we're still here. We still care. We have to show. I think that a lot of times people treat it as though, well, they stop protesting, they don't care about that anymore. And I think that's how we kind of get back into how we get treated until the next person dies. And I just don't think that's the best system. So we need to be consistently visible.
Wow.
I
Andy,
like that.
you back from that? That was really good, I guess, right?
I think that was excellent. I think that I agree with, if we were going to get some takeaways from this, I think that what Philip said, it starts with home to neighborhood to community. And then what Jonathan said is that we have to stay visible, in our presence. If there's a mother or a father or, the auntie who doesn't have any kids, that's me, that's there, that makes a difference because we are constantly showing our faces and implementing those changes. So I think those are powerful messages that are being delivered on this topic so that we're not constantly having hashtags. We're not working after the fact. We need to be proactive and not reactive in our communities a lot of times.
All right, absolutely. So you guys, let's jump into our our last topic for tonight, and then we also have like a little small game that we call the Black Experience. You guys are going to be our first set of contestants, so it should be something fun. I don't know, Kenny, do you want to do the game first and then break into the COVID questions, or do you want to just go ahead, do COVID then game?
Let's go game. Let's get the hard, tough stuff out of the way, and then we can move into the fun stuff last.
Okay, cool. Game plan. Okay, so you guys, COVID has affected everyone, especially small business owners, people who were fortunate enough to be able to work remotely from home or able to work staggered schedules to be able to keep their income coming in. They were fortunate and blessed. But for those individuals who haven't had that opportunity, that's been very challenging. For you guys, because I do know you guys have small businesses, how has the COVID affected you guys in your business as, small businesses, Black owners, and things of that nature?
Well,
John,
for me, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
Philip.
All you.
Well, for me, either one.
Same time.
All right, for me, actually, to be honest with you, my business actually thrived during the COVID area. And the reason being is because I saw so much of outpouring and so much of love from the community as far as saying this is a Black business. Let us support it. Let us get behind it. Let us do everything that we possibly can in order to make sure that this is not another one of our businesses that closes down due to not being able to sustain itself. And to me, it actually made our business excel because again, it forced us to focus on our customer service aspect even more so because we wanted to make sure that if these people are going to come in and do something when everyone is hurting, everyone is having an effect, but they were taking money out of their household to support my business. At least I wanted to do is to give them a pleasurable experience every time they showed up because you never know who you impacted by just a little simple conversation with somebody who was having a rough day, who's taking their time to come into your establishment. And so because of that, we've been actually been able to thrive during this time period. And I'm forever grateful for my community for being able to do that. Like I said, my ties to the community, I believe, is what's actually helped with being in this community for as long as I've actually been in the community. So, but I have seen and I have noticed other businesses, friends, and everyone else who suffered during this time period, and I think that it affected us all in some form or some way. Another thing that that I believe that affected is they were doing PPP loans, they were doing all these things, and the people who needed it was not able to receive it. The
Right.
ones who did not, the ones who didn't need it, they
Mm-hmm.
were the ones that received it. I mean, you talking about being scrutinized. You're talking about, I mean, big businesses getting billions of dollars being bailed out, but the small people, the one who helped to maintain, were not able. But here's the crazy part about that. But you also saw major food chains as well that started to suffer also. So again, it affected everybody. But for us, like I said, it actually helped us. Put us in a position we did lose some income because we were once a mobile food truck. So of
Mm-hmm.
course, when everything shut down, we weren't able to supply those individuals at those businesses. So it affected us there. But again, what helped us is that we had a brick and mortar at this particular time, being able to sustain to keep us going.
Philip, real quick before Jonathan jumps in, can you just let the audience and the listeners know what type of business that you have and where it's located, just in case
Oh,
people
wow.
want.
Oh yeah, I would love to. I mean, we're located right here. I'm the owner of Smoke in Bone. You can see it on the hat. Smoke and Bone Barbecue and Catering. It's a wide variety. Y'all follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, all that. Look, shameless plug. I got to put it out there. But anyway, we're located right here at 122 Southampton in DeSoto, Texas. If you're in the area, definitely come by and stop by. We would definitely love to see you. Again, it's 122 South Hampton in DeSoto, Texas, 75115.
Go get y'all a good. Just check him out, right, Philip?
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Please,
you,
please do.
so you gotta get. So when you go over there, you can get the stuffed baked potato. It's
True,
really good. It's one of my favorite. I like the
true,
brisket nachos.
true.
Or when I get my sides, I always gotta get my macaroni and cheese and my baked beans and a piece of strawberry cake. So
Now,
that's just when I'm in the D.
yeah,
He knows I pull up on him
yes.
on a regular basis. So that's my recommendations to y'all. I'm telling you, if you in that Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex and you on the south side of Dallas Fort Worth, go on over and hit my boy Smoking Bone up.
Okay.
Man,
Sounds.
That
They
sounded
better
that sounded
know.
so good. When I heard you had me at baked beans and mac and cheese, I love those.
Yes.
listen. Honestly, I'm be honest with you. I'm not tooting our own horn, but our beans, I will put our beans up against anybody. Seriously, that's how good they are. That's what we're actually known for. As well as we actually came out with a new dish, so I get a chance to tell y'all about it. It's not new to y'all. We actually came up with a loaded mac and cheese. And you was like, what is that? What is that? Let's see. I see your face, Candace. So I see how you responded. But it's like the loaded baked potato, but at the same time, you have macaroni and cheese at the bottom. So it's mac and cheese, brisket, barbecue sauce, sour cream, chives, bacon bits. When I tell you, man, I've had this thing ever since we came up with it, man, almost every day. And that's the reason why I got to stay in the gym like I do, because, man,
Oh,
I love to eat.
That sounds like a gym
all, all,
meal.
all you missed at the end was saying with this.
You know, you see, you got that Coke, and then we're also known for our strawberry lemonade. That's the other thing that we're known for that you'll check out. So.
Oh, that sounds so good. That sounds delicious. Thank you so much for that, Philip. So you guys, you heard it here. Make sure you check him out. Really good food. Definitely will check that out whenever I come visit Texas. I'm gonna make sure I check that out. Jonathan, what about you? Can you give us some feedback in reference to how your business was affected during COVID, and how did you handle that and things of that nature?
Sure. So outside of my work in higher education, I'm an author. I've actually written 3 books, and 2 of the 3 came out during the pandemic. So ironically enough, it was perfect timing because they're children's books. So in the midst of a pandemic, more and more people are having babies. I'm sure if you all have logged into social media, you've seen so many pregnancy announcements over the last couple of months. So I've had a lot of people reaching out to me interested in buying my children's books for either their son or daughter that is on the way. But the thing I really appreciated about the pandemic the most is that it gave me an opportunity to change up how I do certain things. So, as an author, I also do a lot of motivational speaking. And with COVID, everything has switched to virtual. So, it's very different to talk to a room of 500 people versus
Yeah.
being on a Zoom call with people. It just looks very different in terms of how you keep them engaged and all of that. So it's given me a chance to really enhance a skill set that I didn't really get much practice with before. So I was really grateful for that. And something too for the listeners that's really important to remember is that every season is not going to be as abundant in some areas, but every season still provides some form of a blessing to you. So
Amen.
for me, 2020 was about connections. And it's so funny because you would think during a pandemic you would make less connections, right? Because you can't physically see people. But in the midst of a pandemic, what happened? More people launched podcasts and different things like that. So I've gotten to meet so many new friends, including you all, who aren't from where I live. So now I have friends in different parts of the US. I was on a podcast in the United Kingdom and different things like that. Generally, in a non-pandemic situation, I would have probably had to be like a bigger TV name to get any type of international opportunity. But all of that came from the pandemic and us going to this more virtual system. So I kind of took this as an opportunity to really, I guess, experiment with things that normally I don't get to do. So that would just be my advice to anyone listening, is that pay attention to these downtimes. There was this study, they were talking about companies that were started during the 2008, 2009 economic recession. And these are like the Ubers of today and some of these big companies that they actually got started when things were really bad. And they kind of rode that wave up when things started to get better again. So if you're listening to this and you feel very stuck, this is actually the best time to really get those ideas off the ground, because at some point we will get back to a slightly normal way that we've always done things. So use this time to make your connections. I like to you not in 2020, I doubled my Instagram following. I went into 2020 with 1,900 followers and left with 4,100.
Wow.
So thank you. So just the ability to be able to connect. And most times, when you're running a business, your major focus is just the revenue and things like that. But there are other parts that also need to be worked on to keep that business afloat. So I really just used 2020 to just kind of redo my brand, like get my website a little bit more in order, build more online connections. And like I even tell my students, I say, y'all are lucky. Back in the day, if you wanted to connect with like a professional or something, and y'all live near each other, they would want to meet you in person. You got to drive to them and have a little lunch and stuff. I said, y'all can just Zoom now. So you don't even have the financial expectation of just networking anymore. You can just hop on Zoom with somebody and build a relationship for free. Right. So definitely, like I said, take advantage of these downtimes for those who are listening.
And Jonathan, really quickly before we jump into the game, Candy's going to lead us into the game, but can you let the listeners know where to check out your books?
Sure. So my books are available on my website, which is www.authorjohn.com/books. They are also available at Amazon, Books A Million, and Barnes & Noble. And fun fact for you, too, the Barnes & Nobles, if you're in the Fairfax, Virginia area, they actually carry my physical book in the store. I'm just so proud of that. I love that. Because, book space is very limited. So for a Barnes & Noble franchise to actually physically have my book is just going to be like the coolest part of my 2020 experience, to tell people that they started carrying it. Ironically enough, this is how crazy, because it's a nice topic, was about social injustice. After everything had happened, I definitely reached out to them and I was just like, I'm seeing all these companies put up all this about being committed to us, but what are we doing with like African American literature in the stores? And then boom. So
wow, congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations. And when you say that, I did meet a store manager. So as you are working to promote your book, one of the things, they have a new CEO at Barnes and Nobles. So with the new CEO that came in, the new CEO is changing the displays in the store. And one of the things that they were pushing to the front was diverse literature and the fact of social injustice. So if you go into Barnes and Noble stores, they do look different for the first time in a long time because, as you said earlier, we are a trending topic. So everybody wants to make their money off of what's trending. And if that pushes you to the front of the line, I'm all for it.
I'm all for it too.
And Jonathan,
congratulations.
Another thing that you said really quickly is really important, I think, because for me, with doing my podcast, it was a good 2020 was the year for it to have connections and to build those collaborations and things of that nature. Hence, that's how I pretty much met Candy that way. So you are absolutely right. And in doing so, I had an opportunity to interview someone in Mexico. Had I not, I would never probably had that opportunity with me being in Illinois. You know what I mean? But it was all things being done virtually due to COVID. So like you said, I feel like 2020 kind of was, when you sit and think about it, it was the year for you to kind of like network and trying to build your business structure and things like that. So that was good feedback. I like that. I just had to tell you that. So you guys, for time's sake, we're going to jump into our game. Candy is going to tell you guys about our game. It's called the Black Experience. We're going to have 4 categories: television, movies, and music and history. But Candy is going to give you guys a description of what the game is about, and she is going to get to getting. Go ahead, Candy.
Okay, guys. So the game is called Black Experience. When Jeopardy meets Family Feud, you don't want your black card pulled, okay? So basically, you want to think, you know, we're only going to do it for, everybody's going to get a minute apart. Each person is going to get 1 minute. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And actually, we're going to go 30 seconds, right? Because I don't have a huge list. I feel like, PJ, you may get some of this. There's a generational gap, I feel like, here. But basically, you don't want your black card pulled.
Candy, what you trying to say?
But I'm just saying. See, Jonathan introduced himself, and as you do TV, you understand that people, the age groups with some of these questions, some of this stuff don't make sense because they ain't watched all the TV we done watched and all the movies sometimes. So some of them have, some of them will shock us, but they didn't have anything. There was nothing on TV when we were growing up. We were limited to what we watched and the number of people who looked like us. So we watched those things. So,
right. Okay, well, y'all, I'm seasoned, so I know the answers, so don't judge me, okay?
Yeah.
Come on, Candy.
So I'm gonna ask you guys a question. I'm gonna start with Jonathan, okay? I'm gonna give you a chance to go first. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and ask you just 5, right? This is the first time playing the game with God. So I'll ask you the first 5 questions. You'll get your points if you get them right. If you don't, you know, you just move on, okay? But you don't want your black card pulled. Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure.
So the first one. This character is described as a loudmouth radio DJ.
And this is a real person or you said this character?
This category is television and movies. A loudmouth radio DJ.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, y'all. Y'all gotta know.
I know it. I mean, I know the answer.
It's Jonathan's question.
Okay.
Wow,
you can skip the question and go to another one. You got like 3 seconds.
Okay, skip.
Okay, last question. Finish the theme song. Temporary layoffs.
Come on, Jonathan. Represent.
Temporary layoff.
Finish this theme song.
Jonathan, temporary layoffs.
I am struggling right now. I am so sorry, y'all. Wow.
Okay, last one. This family show was a part of the TGIF lineup that featured a nerd.
Family Matters?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I feel a little bit better. Whew.
Okay. So you got 1 point that round.
We was about to take his card.
Yeah. So Philip,
please
it's your
don't.
turn, right? And I'm
Okay.
gonna start, and we're gonna run it for about 30 seconds. We're gonna run it for about 30 seconds. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, this is a theme song. And in a 90s kind of world, I'm glad I got my girls.
What?
Living single.
Okay, I was the
Yo.
butler for a family in Bel Air.
Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
But who was the butler?
Oh, Jeffrey.
Mama Payne hated.
Oh, yeah, Tisha Campbell. She hated Gina.
Okay, who killed Mama Payne's bird?
Oh, Gina.
This character was a 65-year-old black male who lived with his son.
Oh, Fred Sanford. Sanford the son.
There you go. And what was Fred Sanford's beloved wife's name?
Elizabeth. I'm coming to join you, honey.
Last one.
You watch TV when you was little.
That's all we had to do. We would watch TV and go outside. We would go outside.
And what did Fred Sanford sell?
Oh, junk.
There we go. Ding, ding, ding. That's the game.
Wow.
That's the black experience.
Congratulations.
So you got 7 points. You got all 7 of the questions that I asked. So that's kind of how the black experience goes. That was just the first round. So it does take a right. This is my game that I've been contemplating in my head for a long time. So Philip, was it too easy or does it need to be a little harder?
If you're talking TV, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's all I did. So I mean, I got that. That was easy. But if you start going to some of the other categories, you know, I mean, I might struggle a little bit.
We can tell, Philip. We can tell.
So okay, so music, I may have got you.
No.
I didn't think so.
Nah.
Okay.
Nah.
And so we'll talk about it off camera. But I thank you guys for playing the Black Experience. I'm gonna go ahead and give it back over to my co-host to take us on up out of here.
Yes. So thank you guys so much for joining us on our first episode of Sipping Saturdays. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at sippingsaturdays@gmail.com. This is Kia.
And this is your girl Candy. And until next week,
Always remember, you have the power to be a game changer. Until next time, you guys.